The alarm blared with the urgency of a caffeinated parrot, echoing through the cramped corridors of the Atlas Drift. Dax Mercer groaned, rolled off the tattered bunk, and cracked his head on the low ceiling. Again. Proximity alert. The ship's AI chimed in a voice that sounded far too cheerful for a malfunctioning freighter drifting aimlessly through uncharted space. Dax rubbed his forehead, glaring at the console's flickering display. Yeah. Let me guess. Another micrometeor shower? Or did an asteroid finally decide to flirt with us? Unidentified object approaching at high velocity. The AI corrected, its pleasant tone utterly unfazed. Collision imminent. Please evacuate. Oh wait, there's nowhere to go. The proximity sensors painted a red dot spiraling toward the ship, smaller than expected, but fast. Very fast. Great. Dax jammed his boots on, shuffled to the cockpit, and squinted through the viewport. Amid the backdrop of stars and drifting space debris, a glint of polished metal tumbled toward him, sleek, cylindrical, trailing faint blue flames from thrusters struggling to stabilize. It wasn't an asteroid. It was an escape pod. Dax's eyebrows climbed higher than his paycheck had in years. Seriously? Someone's having a worse day than me. The pod thudded against the hull with a dull clang, the kind of sound that made engineers weep. The magnetic clamps engaged automatically, locking it in place. Dax sighed, grabbing his toolkit and muttering under his breath about cosmic karma. Minutes later, he stood beside the airlock, eyeing the sealed pod. Its sleek Elendari design was unmistakable high-end tech, all curves and glowing seams. The Elendari Dominion didn't usually misplace escape pods. They also didn't visit fringe sectors like this unless things had gone epically wrong. The pod's hatch hissed open, and out stumbled her. Golden hair tumbled over armored shoulders, shimmering like starlight caught in silk. Long, delicate ears poked through her hair, unmistakably Elendari, though Dax had never seen one in person. Her skin glowed faintly under the ship's harsh lights, and her emerald eyes, sharp and narrowed, locked onto him like heat-seeking missiles. She also promptly collapsed. Dax lunged, catching her awkwardly. She wasn't heavy, but the ornate armor plating didn't help. Blood, silver, faintly luminescent, seeped from a gash along her ribs. Okay, Dax muttered, hauling her inside. Definitely not how I planned my day. Also, you owe me hazard pay. The ship's AI chimed again. Medical scanners indicate critical injuries. Recommend immediate attention or she'll die, which might negatively affect your guest review rating. Dax dragged her to the medbay, a glorified storage closet with outdated equipment, and patched the worst of the wound with shaky hands and too much duct tape. The Elendari tech embedded in her armor blinked faint diagnostic patterns as nanites worked alongside his crude first aid. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. For a second, she seemed dazed, alien, ethereal. Then her gaze focused on him, sharp as a plasma scalpel. Where am I? Her voice was soft but threaded with authority, the kind that could order fleets. My ship. Technically a flying death trap. You crash-landed. You're welcome. Dax offered a lopsided grin, though his pulse hadn't slowed since she fell into his arms. She pushed herself up, wincing, but her composure settled like a cloak. You are human? Last time I checked. You're not exactly on the tourist route. Who the hell are you? She hesitated, pride warring with exhaustion, before whispering words that made his stomach knot in ways he didn't like. I am Princess Liara of the Elendari Dominion. She straightened despite the pain, chin tilted at a defiant angle. If you love me, I will give you everything. Dax blinked, opened his mouth, closed it, replayed the sentence twice to confirm his brain wasn't starved of oxygen. Okay, wow. We're skipping introductions and jumping straight to galactic proposals now. He waved a hand vaguely. Don't get me wrong, you're gorgeous, but I'm pretty sure that's the blood loss talking. Her eyes darkened, frustration simmering beneath the regal exterior. I'm not delirious. The offer stands. Princess, I don't even know your favorite food. Stars above? Does it matter? To me? Absolutely. she faltered, lips twitching. Whether in amusement or irritation, Dax couldn't tell. The medbay lights flickered as proximity alarms chimed again. The AI's voice interrupted, ever chipper. Incoming vessels detected. Small, armed, and statistically unfriendly. Dax swore under his breath. Liara's expression hardened. They found me, she muttered, pushing to her feet with more strength than she should have had. Her long ears twitched at the sound of approaching engines. We have to leave. Define they. Because my ship's barely holding together as it is. Bounty hunters, she snapped, staggering but determined. And assassins. Sent to finish what they started. Dax sighed, palming the controls as klaxons blared louder. You Elendari really know how to spice up a weekend. The engines roared to life, shields humming weakly, and as laser fire streaked past the viewport, Dax glanced at her. The defiant tilt of her chin, the gleam of unspoken promises in her eyes, and realized two things. 1. His life had officially spiraled into cosmic chaos. 2. Despite every survival instinct screaming otherwise, part of him was dangerously curious about what everything actually meant. The Atlas drift groaned like an overworked cargo hauler as Dax wrestled the controls, fingers flying across cracked screens, dodging streaks of plasma fire that lit up the void outside. The targeting alarms howled. The shield meter blinked a steady, depressing red, and the ship's AI was calmly listing the odds of their survival. Spoiler alert. They weren't good. Warning. The AI chirped in that relentlessly cheerful tone. Hull integrity compromised. Probability of catastrophic death. 86% and rising. Dax gritted his teeth, yanking the freighter into a barrel roll that made the loose wiring rain sparks overhead. You hear that, Princess? You picked one hell of a getaway ride. Behind him, Liara stumbled, bracing herself against the console. Her golden hair was plastered to her face with sweat, and her long ears twitched irritably with every jolt. Somehow, even with blood drying along the edges of her armor, she still managed to look like she belonged on a throne, not half dying on a junker with peeling floor panels. I didn't exactly choose this ship, she shot back, voice clipped but steady. I was unconscious, if you recall. Yeah, well, I'd love to give you the tour, but we're busy not dying. Dax jerked the controls, sending the freighter weaving between a cluster of drifting asteroids. One of the bounty hunters' sleek black ships clipped the edge of a rock, spinning off into space. The others closed in, engines glowing like predatory eyes. Liara's gaze narrowed as she slid into the co-pilot seat, hands already flying across secondary controls. She barked commands in Elendari, accessing systems Dax didn't even know still worked. Where'd you learn to fly? Dax asked, mildly impressed as the shields flickered back to life under her modifications. Royal Defense Training, she answered, rerouting power with practiced precision. Though I never planned to use it. Like this. Well, your royal plans officially trashed. Dax grunted as a blast rocked the ship. Welcome to the glamorous life of fugitives. The comm crackled. A harsh, guttural voice snarled over the channel. Surrender the princess, and we'll make your death quick. Liara's expression didn't even flinch. Charming, she muttered, toggling the comm off. Fans of yours, Dax quipped, guiding them toward the outer rim of a dense debris field. Ancient wreckage spun in lazy orbits, a graveyard of forgotten ships from wars no one remembered. Political enemies, Liara replied grimly. If they catch me, they'll do more than kill us. They'll make sure no one ever knows what happened. Dax swore under his breath, threading the freighter through the tangled remains of a battlecruiser's skeleton. Beams twisted around them like frozen ribs. Behind, the bounty ships hesitated. Great. So, interstellar execution squad on our tail, ships falling apart, and I haven't had coffee in... What day is it? Your sarcasm is exhausting, Liara muttered, but the faintest curve of her lips betrayed amusement. Exhaustion's my specialty. Dax risked a glance at her. But you, princess, you're full of surprises. The bounty hunters regrouped, engines roaring as they surged into the debris field. Plasma shots sparked off twisted metal. Dax jerked the freighter into a narrow gap between corroded hull plates, alarms wailing as fragments scraped their shields. "Think you can buy me a few seconds?" he asked, scanning the navigation screen for options. Liara's fingers danced over controls, overriding safeties, patching systems. "If by buy time, you mean cause unpredictable explosions. Absolutely. Perfect. Chaos is my love language." With a shimmer of energy, Liara rigged an old fusion core floating nearby, detonating it in a burst of blinding light. The pursuing ships veered off, systems scrambled by the pulse. Dax hooped, accelerating as they cleared the wreckage field. "Now that's teamwork. Don't get comfortable," Liara warned, adjusting her gauntlet. "They'll regroup. We need safe harbor." "Define safe in this part of space," Dax muttered, flipping through star maps. "Closest outpost is Zephyr 9. Jungle moon, terrible reviews, and the wildlife thinks humans are a delicacy." Liara considered, weighing options with that sharp diplomatic gaze. "We go. Better hostile jungles than hostile assassins." "You're oddly optimistic for someone with a bounty on their head." She arched a golden brow, ears twitching faintly. "I'm not optimistic. I'm practical. And you, Captain Mercer, are still alive because I am." "Captain," Dax snorted. "Let's not get carried away. This rust bucket barely qualifies as a ship. Still, you're in command, for now." There was teasing in her voice, barely veiled beneath the royal composure. Dax's grin widened as the Atlas drift angled toward the moon's glowing atmosphere. "Princess, you're dangerously close to making this fun." Their laughter was short-lived as the bounty hunters reappeared on sensors, closing in once more. Liara's hand hovered near the weapons controls. "Hope you like adventure," Dax muttered, prepping for atmospheric entry. Liara's eyes gleamed, battle-ready. "I am a princess. If you love me, I will give you everything." The ship rattled, heat flaring across the hull as they plunged toward Zephyr 9, bounty hunters in pursuit, promises lingering like fuel on the fire. The Atlas drift hit the upper atmosphere of Zephyr 9 with all the grace of a falling cargo container, rattling like it was held together by stubbornness and duct tape. Plasma scorched along the hull, the controls hissed with overheating circuits, and Dax Mercer held the yoke so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Brace for impact," he shouted over the alarms, as if that phrase ever made crashing sound better. Princess Liara was already strapped into the co-pilot's seat, her long ears twitching with tension, but her expression was maddeningly calm. "Are you always this reckless? Or is today special?" Dax grinned despite the ship's groans. "Special occasion. I'm trying to impress royalty." A blast of turbulence slammed them sideways. The viewport blurred with streaks of green as dense jungle stretched below, canopy after canopy of alien foliage, some of it glowing faintly under the planet's twin moons. "Your planet of choice better be worth the bruises," Liara muttered, flicking through the ship's dwindling diagnostic readouts. "Zephyr 9? Oh, it's famous," Dax quipped, wrestling the controls. "Tourist hotspot, you know, for people with a death wish and no appreciation for personal hygiene." The ship bucked as a thruster gave out, sending them spiraling toward a narrow clearing. With a heroic combination of last-second adjustments and pure blind luck, the freighter slammed into the ground, plowing through foliage and leaving a smoking trail of destruction behind them. When the world finally stopped spinning, Dax slumped forward, exhaling in relief. "See? Perfect landing." The ship's AI chimed in, still frustratingly chipper. "Hull integrity at 18%. Landing classified as catastrophic but survivable. Congratulations, Captain." Liara unstrapped herself, glaring. "If that's perfect, remind me never to see what failure looks like." Dax stood, brushing leaves off his jacket, and grabbed his sidearm. Outside the viewport, the jungle pulsed with bioluminescent plants, their vines twitching like they had minds of their own. "All right, Princess, welcome to Zephyr 9, Dax declared with exaggerated cheer. "Home of killer plants, questionable wildlife, and no decent coffee for at least 100 light-years. Liara's eyes scanned the dense trees, glowing undercurrents of energy flickering across the foliage. The bounty hunters? Dax tapped the sensor console. Scattered, maybe. I don't see them, but they'll find us eventually. He motioned toward the jungle. Time to relocate before we become jungle appetizers. They stepped out into the humid air, the towering flora casting eerie shadows under twin moons. Strange insect-like creatures buzzed overhead, and vines twitched along the ground like serpents waiting for prey. So, this is the famous Zephyra, Liara muttered, sidestepping a vine that curled ominously toward her boots. Yeah, watch the plants, they bite. Dax grinned, leading them through the undergrowth with practiced caution. They hiked for nearly an hour, weaving through glowing fungi and avoiding carnivorous-looking blooms that hissed when they passed. Despite the tension, Dax couldn't help tossing glances at Liara. Even battered and covered in dirt, she carried herself with a stubborn, regal grace, her long ears flicking with every new sound. So offering everything still on the table, or was that heat of the moment desperation? Dax teased, stepping over a root the size of a starfighter wing. Liara didn't break stride. If you have to ask, you probably aren't ready for the answer. Dax chuckled, but before he could reply, the undergrowth ahead rustled, shadows shifting between the trees. They ducked behind a fallen log as figures emerged, clad in scavenged armor, their weapons sleek and unfamiliar. Bounty hunters? Liara whispered, eyes narrowing. Dax squinted. Nope. Locals. Mercs, maybe. Or just extremely well-armed nature enthusiasts. The group was scanning the area, their voices low but tense, their equipment bristling with Elendari tech. Definitely not amateurs. Liara's expression hardened. They're looking for me. Dax checked his sidearm. Fantastic. Jungle strolls over. Before the mercs spotted them, Liara tapped a control on her gauntlet, projecting a faint hologram of their surroundings. She pointed to an overgrown ravine nearby. We slip past them. No firefights unless necessary. Look at you. Already thinking like a fugitive. Dax grinned, leading the way. They crawled through the underbrush, slipping past the mercs as rain began to fall thick, heavy droplets that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The jungle hissed with life, the wet leaves reflecting eerie blue-green hues. As they reached the ravine, Dax slipped on a mossy rock, landing with an undignified thud. Liara smothered a laugh, offering a hand to pull him up. I thought humans had better balance, she teased, her earlier tension easing for a moment. I've got fantastic balance, Dax retorted, brushing off mud. Gravity here just has a grudge. They continued deeper into the ravine, the mercs fading behind them. But the danger wasn't over. Vines overhead twisted like sentient ropes, and faint glowing spores drifted through the air. So, Dax asked casually, swatting away a glowing bug, how long before your enemies give up and leave me out of their assassination plans? Liara arched a brow. If I survive, you survive. Besides, didn't I promise you everything? Dax smirked, stepping over a root. Still not sure if everything means treasure, political chaos, or just more near-death jungle hikes. Liara's eyes sparkled faintly. It means you stay alive with me. Is that enough? Dax's grin faded slightly, replaced by something more serious beneath the humor. Yeah, maybe it is. As they pushed deeper into Zephyr's glowing jungle, with assassins behind them and promises lingering between them, Dax realized survival wasn't his biggest problem anymore. It was how fast he was falling for the princess with dangerous eyes and an even more dangerous offer. The inside of the Dominion Star Cruiser Vigilance smelled like polished steel, recycled air, and the quiet, suffocating scent of absolute authority. Dax Mercer was intimately familiar with the scent of hopeless situations, and this one practically reeked of it. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists as two heavily armored guards shoved him down a corridor lined with gleaming panels and security drones that hovered like mechanical vultures. Every few steps, they passed an ornate Elendari crest glowing faintly on the walls, a reminder that this wasn't just any ship. It was a floating throne room, courtroom, and execution stage all in one. So, this part of the everything package? Dax quipped over his shoulder. Because I gotta say, the hospitality's lacking. The guard behind him grunted, tightening the cuffs just to make a point. Dax winced but kept the grin plastered on. Humor was his last defense, and right now it was holding on by a thread. They rounded a corner and entered the central atrium. A towering, cathedral-like space pulsing with energy conduits and adorned with banners bearing the Dominion sigil. In the center stood Princess Liara, no longer the fugitive scrambling through jungle vines. She was draped in ceremonial armor, her long ears exposed in defiant elegance, golden hair braided with intricate Elendari patterns, and a dozen armed officials surrounding her like a protective ring of predators. Her eyes met his briefly, and something unspoken flickered there. Regret, frustration, and beneath it all, the faintest smirk. Great, she was enjoying this. Dax was shoved forward as an official in emerald robes approached, his expression carrying all the warmth of a black hole. Dax Mercer, smuggler, trespasser, suspected accomplice to the attempted abduction of Her Highness, Princess Liara. Alleged? Dax corrected, flexing his bound wrists. And technically, she crash-landed into my ship. Not exactly a kidnapping. The official didn't blink. Silence. Dax sighed. Tough crowd. Liara's voice cut through the tension, cool and sharp. This man saved my life. He's not your prisoner. He's under my protection. The surrounding officials exchanged glances, some disapproving, others wary. The Dominion Council chamber wasn't known for tolerating improvisation, and Liara bending protocol was clearly ruffling the perfectly tailored feathers of the aristocracy. The lead official's jaw tightened. With respect, Your Highness, the law is clear. Outsiders interfering in Dominion affairs. Outsiders who prevent assassination attempts deserve recognition. Liara interrupted, stepping forward. Unless you'd prefer I was floating in space as debris. The official hesitated, calculating. Dax could practically hear the political gears grinding. Besides, Liara added, a faint smile curling her lips, he's harmless. Dax raised an eyebrow. Hey, I take offense to that. She ignored him, eyes never leaving the council. After a pause heavy enough to warp gravity, the official relented with a curt nod. Release him, he ordered. But his movements will be monitored. The cuffs disengaged with a hiss. Dax flexed his wrists, muttering, monitored, imprisoned, practically the same thing. Liara approached, her gaze sharp but amused. Consider this an upgrade from jungle hikes and bounty hunters. Dax chuckled softly. Debatable. Your people stare like they're debating which airlock to throw me out of. Some probably are. Her voice dropped lower only for him. But I meant what I said. You're under my protection now. That include hazard pay? He teased. She rolled her eyes, but there was warmth beneath the exasperation. Before Dax could push his luck further, a sharp chime echoed through the chamber. Holographic projections of star systems flared to life, illuminating the room in swirling light. A senior counselor spoke, his voice carrying over the assembled officials. The Dominion is at a crossroads. Factions fracture our unity. Enemies circle like vultures. And our princess, nearly lost to treachery, stands before us as the rightful heir. All eyes turned to Liara. Dax watched as her shoulders squared, the polished facade slipping back into place. But he saw it now, the edges of fatigue, the flicker of doubt buried under duty. She was royalty, a political figure, a symbol of power. But she was also the woman who'd bled on his ship, who'd laughed at his terrible jokes, who'd offered him everything with a vulnerability no council chamber could erase. Later, away from prying ears, they found a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars. The glass stretched above them, endless space glittering like a cosmic ocean. So, Dax began, leaning against the rail. You going to tell me what everything really means? Because so far, I've got bruises, threats, and an unhealthy dependence on caffeine. Liara smirked faintly, her long ears twitching in thought. Everything means not facing this alone. It means choosing someone not because politics demands it, but because I want to. Dax studied her, the quiet strength beneath the regal exterior. And you think I'm that someone? You're still alive, aren't you? She teased. But there was something raw beneath the joke. Dax considered the stars, the impossible mess of galactic politics, bounty hunters and royal promises. Yeah, he said softly. I'm still alive. Guess that means I'm in. Her hand brushed his briefly, a promise unsaid but understood. The moment hung between them, fragile as starlight, as the Dominion's warships drifted beyond the viewport, and the future loomed like an approaching storm. The ancient space citadel of Arinder hovered in the void like a wounded leviathan, massive hull scars trailing debris across the orbital plane. Dax Mercer stood beside Princess Liara in the Atlas Drift's cramped cockpit, staring at the relic station as it slowly rotated, lights flickering across shattered towers and forgotten docking arms. Well, Dax muttered, adjusting the collar of his jacket. You weren't kidding about dramatic backdrops. This place screams final showdown. Liara's eyes traced the silhouette of Arinder with practiced calm, though the faint twitch of her long ears betrayed the tension she refused to show. Arinder is more than drama. It's the birthplace of the Dominion. The Council meets here when unity's on the brink of collapse. And we're attending there stop the Empire from eating itself, party uninvited. Dax added, powering down the engines as they approached a derelict docking port. Fantastic. Invited, Liara corrected softly. Barely tolerated, but invited. The ship docked with a shaky hiss. Outside, armored sentinels awaited, their visors glowing faintly in the low light. The crumbling station groaned around them as they stepped out, boots echoing on corroded metal. As they moved through the decaying halls, faded banners of the Elendari Dominion fluttered weakly, remnants of better times. Dax kept close, one hand on his sidearm, the other brushing the small holoprojector tucked into his belt. The insurance plan Liara had insisted they bring. You nervous? He asked as they passed rusted statues of Elendari rulers staring down like disappointed ancestors. Liara's lips curled faintly. Terrified. But apparently that's normal when your family tries to overthrow you. Can't relate. My family just forgets my birthday. They reached the central chamber, a grand hall beneath a fractured glass dome, stars visible through the jagged cracks. The council was assembled in a semicircle of elevated platforms, their holographic displays casting eerie blue light across polished stone floors. Liara's brother, High Counselor Kalen, stood at the forefront, tall and severe in silver-trimmed armor. His long ears twitched as they approached, eyes sharp as a vibroblade. Sister, Kalen greeted coolly, nodding at the armed guards surrounding them. I see you've survived. Pity. Dax resisted the urge to applaud the family reunion. Friendly guy. Liara ignored the jibe, stepping forward. I've come to expose the truth. You orchestrated my assassination attempt. You're manipulating the council. And you've fractured the Dominion to fuel your own ambitions. Kalen's smile was pure politician, polished, venomous. Such wild accusations. Have your human companion explain the evidence. Dax cleared his throat, holding up the holoprojector. Happy to. But fair warning, this exposé comes with terrible production value and no popcorn. He activated the device, projecting encrypted files stolen from Kalen's flagship. The messages, the intercepted orders, the proof of alliances forged in shadow to destabilize the Dominion for personal gain. Gasps rippled through the council. Whispers erupted like static. Kalen's facade cracked for a heartbeat, rage flickering across his features. You trust a human smuggler's word over your own blood? Liara's gaze didn't waver. I trust actions. And Dax saved my life more times than you ever protected this empire. Kalen's hand drifted to his sidearm, but the council intervened, security forces moving in with mechanical precision. Counselor Kalen, one of the elders declared, voice amplified by the chamber's systems. You are hereby stripped of authority pending investigation. Kalen's snarl was cut short as armed guards restrained him. Dax exhaled, tension finally bleeding from his shoulders. Well, that wasn't terrifying at all. The council turned to Liara, their expressions a mix of respect, calculation, and relief. You've proven your loyalty to the Dominion, the elder continued, and your right to rule. Liara inclined her head, composed but visibly exhausted. Thank you, but the Dominion needs more than rulers. It needs change. The chamber quieted, the gravity of her words lingering like the hum of distant engines. Hours later, as they prepared to leave Arinder, Dax found Liara on an observation deck, staring at the stars beyond the fractured dome. You did it, he said, leaning beside her. We did it, she corrected, eyes reflecting the cosmic expanse. You never gave up. Technically, I complained the entire time. He smiled, then sobered. What happens now? Liara's gaze softened. I lead, I rebuild, and I choose. Dax raised a brow. And your grand offer? Everything. Does that include a slightly damaged human with questionable humor? Her laughter was quiet but real. Especially that part. She reached for his hand, fingers intertwining with his. The stars stretched infinitely ahead, wars behind them, possibilities unspooling like the galaxies beyond. Dax squeezed her hand gently, his smile steady this time. For the record, he whispered, I love you too, princess. And now, she teased, I give you everything. The Atlas drift powered up once more, its hull scarred but flying true, carrying them into a future unbound by crowns, conspiracies, or fear. A future chosen together, written among the stars.